Shalom, and welcome to another in our series of podcasts from Temple Beth Am, a dynamic center for conservative Judaism in Los Angeles. This is a recording of Rabbi Adam Kligfeld's weekly Rashi study class.
Good morning, everyone. It's so nice to see you all. It's been too long of a break. Some of you I've spent some significant amount of time with, but it's also nice to see you again. And I will also say that, with no exaggeration, the spirit of this group was alive on our trip because we did a lot of stops in places where great rabbis lived and taught and were buried, and did what I learned to do back in the 90s, which is the way to honor them is to teach their Torah at their grave. So we taught the Torah of the Chatam Sofer at the Chatam Sofer's grave, and the Torah of the Nitziv and the Nitziv's grave. But we didn't get to Worms, so we didn't get to Rashi's grave. But there was definitely textual-based Torah study on this trip, which was one of the most enriching parts of the experience. But it's nice to be back in the rhythm of the class, and we're going to jump right in. Seth, this is your first time joining this class? Welcome, Seth. Seth, if you haven't met him, I don't know why, he's here every day. Seth has recently joined our community. If I may say, recently joined fully the people of Israel, and has been a regular on Shabbat and Minyan, and is now jumping into Torah study, and we love having you amongst us, Seth, so welcome. Hello to those who are listening to this on the Temple Beth Am podcast series. Thank you for your patience as I was away. And a particular hello to Larry and Diane, who are in Oregon or Washington? Forgot.
Seattle, Washington.
Seattle, because Diane's mother is ill. We wishing her and you blessings for healing and strength. Okay. The last I have is that we had read chapter 12, verse 20, but not done the Rashis. So I think we're going to read the verse again to make sure that we have remember what it's about. We are still in the extended instructions about Exodus night. And then pretty soon we're going to get to the actual action, right? So we're in this long description in advance of what the action is going to be, and then it's actually going to happen, okay? So it sounds like we're picking up in the middle of an idea, but that's just where we are. Verse 20, Kol machmetzet, all, is he okay? Is he bothering you? Okay, I can settle down. Okay. Do you mind bringing the garbage over just to put this tea bag? I forgot this prefatory remark. Of course, this first day back teaching is going to be truncated because I have a funeral. I have to be at Hillside at 10 o'clock. So I'm going to have a hard stop at 9:25 so I can be on the road. I can't be late for this funeral. What's that?
That sounds like you're kind of close.
You may want to give yourself a little more time.
Yeah, so let me talk quickly.
That'll do it.
Doesn't that work that way? Isn't that how the math works? Kol machmetzet, any leavening agent, right? You can see the word machmetzet, kind of a noun created from a he-feel or a pl, like something that would make something chametz. Lo tochelu, you may not eat. B'chol moshvotechem, in all of your dwelling places. Tochlu matzot, you have to eat matzah. And if that sounds like we've been there before, it's because in verse 19, and this is going to anticipate Rashi, we have the word machmetzet, but we don't have it as a thou shalt not. We have it as a what will happen if you do. So just remind yourself of verse 19, Shivat Yamim, for 7 days, Se'or, which really is a true synonym for machmetzet, the leavening agent, the starter. Lo yimatzeh bevatechem, will not be found in your houses. Ki, 4, Kol ochel machmetzet, anyone who eats that stuff, and even you can tell by the parallelism in the verse that the verse is considering machmetzet to be just a replacement word for Se'or. V'nichrata hanefesh hahi me'adat Yisrael, that the whoever eats it will be cut off from his soul will be cut off from the congregation of Israel. We talked about the different things that karet should mean. So in 19 it says that Se'or / machmetzet shouldn't be found. It also tells you what the punishment is for eating it is, but what has not the Torah said yet? Shouldn't eat it, right? It seems implied, but the Torah hasn't said it explicitly, and that's going to set up one of Rashi's comments on this verse. Okay? Any questions on the verse itself before we jump into the Rashi? No? Okay. So let's look at Rashi's first comment on Lo Yimatzeh, machmetzet lo tochelu. Joel, you've got a microphone near you. You want to take it?
Me?
Yeah. Is your name still Joel?
Yeah.
I know I've been away a long time, but
Machmetza lo tochelu, azhara al achilat seor. That's a warning against the eating of, or regarding the eating of seor.
right. And he's using warning here, both generally and technically. Generally saying this is where the verse tells you not to do it, but azhara in halachic language is related to punishment. And he's about to say it. Actually, doesn't say it explicitly. He says it implicitly. That think of being a parent or a camp counselor or any position of authority. If you're going to impose a punishment, you better have been pretty clear about the thou shalt not, right? And so the language of the clarity over what you ought not do in halachic language is the azhara. There's no onesh without azhara. You can be disappointed, but you can't punish for X unless you specifically and explicitly said not to do X. So what Rashi is saying is, in verse 19, there's an implication that you shouldn't do X because it said he shouldn't be found in your house, and the punishment is listed, but the Torah never said don't do this. Now the Torah does, somewhat in reverse order. All of that is kind of implied in that short little phrase. Barry has a hand. Will you bring that other microphone down?
Just sorry to delay you, but it seems redundant. In 19, Kiko Ochel Masmeset is karet. So we've already been told if you eat it, they'll be karet. What's the difference between that and don't eat it?
Well, it's not a question. It's the punishment. It doesn't say don't eat it. It says it shall not be found in your homes. And for anyone who eats the leavening, yes, that shall be
Your
cut
question,
off.
Barry, is Rashi's answer, right? Since in verse 19 it told you the punishment for doing it, there's got to be at some point a verse, even if it comes later, the verse that tells you not to do it in the first place. You can't have a punishment without a warning. So the 19 said your punishment for doing this is karet. Yeah. But the Torah never said don't do it. Now the Torah says don't do it. Listen, it's Rashi's way of saying whatever verse 20 is, it isn't redundant because Rashi can't fathom redundancy. We might look at it and say, yeah, the editor, didn't edit well. But in a, as we've said 1,000 times, right, in a midrashic approach to this material, redundancy, if we are concerned about a redundancy, it's our lack, not the text lack, and there must be something specific that we're supposed to learn from it. And he's saying, this goes to the super commentaries in Rashi mentioned the klal, and the klal, the general principle is there is no punishment without warning. We had punishment. Where was the warning? This is the warning. It just came afterwards, right? Or it's redundant, right? It could be that too. Okay, anything else on that comment? Yeah, Paul, take the microphone.
Is it common? Is it common to have the punishment? Excuse me, the punishment before the command itself?
Right. No, which is why Rashi, kind of I think goes out of his way to explain what's going on rather than have us just assume this is a normal pattern. Right. Again, think of yourself either in a subject to authority or being the one imposing authority. It would not seem fair or reasonable to only get the rule after the punishment has been articulated. So it's generally not the common pattern, but apparently it's not impossible either. Yeah. Okay, anyone on Zoom? No? Okay. Next comment. Joel.
Kol machmet lahavi et ta'aravto.
Ta'arovoto, or ta'arovto, yeah. Lahavi, what does lahavi mean?
To bring along.
To bring along. And anyone know what it means kind of in Midrash Halacha? Include, right? This word is to bring along in the category the following thing, lest you think that it would be excluded. And what is the kol? Because Rashi is saying, basically the phrase would have made perfect sense with just machmetzet lo tachelu. What are we learning from the comprehensiveness of the kol? What do you make of that?
Taravto.
What is tarovet? Mixture, right? La'arev is to stir, right? Your buvia is a mix-up of things. And eruv is a thing which mixes the thing that was inside a category and outside the category. So a ta'arovet is a mixture, and in halachic language, particularly in kashrut, it's the mixture of forbidden and permitted, or the mixture of meat and milk, right? And there are chapters and chapters of the Shulchan Aruch that deal with the laws of ta'arovet. What happens if X gets mixed into Y? The whole notion of something being batel b'shishim, nullified in 160, is within the laws of ta'arovet, right? And chametz has very, very significant laws of ta'arovet. In fact, I may have discussed this before, but since we're discussing it now, one of the ways in which the laws of chametz are more chamor, more stringent than treif in kosher and meat and milk is vis-a-vis ta'arovet. It's a very interesting pikayun law, which I think has an interesting application outside of kashrut as well. So, but what does batel b'shishim mean? So someone on the microphone explain out what that means.
If you inadvertently put
Very important word, right?
Yeah,
you
if
can't
you-
have a small piece of cheese and a very big hamburger intentionally.
Right. If you spill a drop of milk in your meat dish that's cooking and it was unintentional, if it's less than 1 part at 60, it does not make a treif. One can still continue to eat it.
Right, and that also applies to treif in kosher. You mentioned meat and milk or meat and milk, and it also applies to chametz before Pesach, right? Correct. Right. Right. So if I'm preparing for Pesach the week before, and I'm cooking a soup, and something that could be absorbed in the soup, you can't see it. It's not like a crouton, but something that gets absorbed into the soup that's less than 1/60th of the volume of the soup, and it's before Pesach, it's as if it never happened, right? If it happened on Pesach, the phrase is afilu be'elef lo batel. Even 1 parts to 1,000 is not nullified, which is a way of saying it's never nullified. Okay. Let's go back to the meat, milk, or treif kosher thing. So let's say I had 61 ounces of chicken soup and 1 ounce of milk got mixed in by accident. Right, now I have 62 ounces of what? Fully kosher chicken soup. Okay. Let's say I'm a klutz and I do it again by accident. Now I have what? It's still kosher. It's 63 ounces of fully kosher. And because halakha likes to imagine theoretical possibilities, if I'm a klutz 60 times over, halakha would consider, if it was all done inadvertently, the resulting admixture, even if it's half chicken soup and half milk, totally kosher. Because once it's nullified, it's always nullified.
So chicken Kiev is okay if you're clumsy?
Chicken what?
Chicken Kiev.
Chicken Kiev is okay if you're clumsy. Okay. I mean, we shouldn't even use chicken as an example because chicken should be parv anyway. But that
Can't we just make it part
that law of ta'arovet applies to treif and kosher. It applies to meat and milk and meat. It does not apply to chametz. Chametz has this category of choser v'neor. Choser means returns. Neor, wakes up. The previously nullified chametz wakes up to be counted again if the mistake happens again. So if I had 61 ounces of kosher Pesach soup, and 1 ounce of chametz falls in, then that is a kosher mixture. And if I make the mistake again, I'm all of a sudden above the 1/60th because the second ounce of chametz is being added to a 62-ounce kosher soup, but it awakens choser v'neor, the chametz that I nullified, and therefore that is now not kosher for Pesach. Only applies to chametz. So all of that is my way of explaining that ta'arovet is a halachic concept for the laws of mixtures. And what then is the rule that Rashi is saying is being added here? Joel? Or anyone?
A mixture. I mean,
But say it out. So what is the kol? You might have thought what? One might have thought this, but the rule is actually that. Carl?
One might have thought that leavening was prohibited when it itself, concentrated, pure leavening. But this is telling us that leavening, when mixed with anything else, any amount, is also prohibited.
Correct. not only is the leavening agent, like the chametz itself, prohibited to eat, the leavening agent, like the chametz, is also prohibited in mixtures to the same mathematics. Because you might have said, well, whatever the leavening agent is, it isn't chametz, right? It's the thing that can produce chametz, but it's not chametz. And still, Rashi says, the kol, and he's quoting like ream, he's filtering reams of halachic midrash on this. The kol suggests that even the leavening agent is subject to the laws of tarovet, not just eating it itself. And when we are selling our chametz on Pesach, if we did it right, what we're really selling is the tarovet, the mixtures, because what are we supposed to have done with the actual chametz? Get rid of it, right? Like if you're really doing it the right way, there should be no chametz in your house except for your whiskey, because God has mercy on our collections, right? But there shouldn't be ideally Triscuits and bread and pita in your freezer, right? That's actual chametz. You should have gotten, rationed and got rid of it. But the stuff in your cabinet that doesn't have a kosher lePesach symbol, but probably has some mixture of chametz in it, that's tarovet. That's the stuff we're really selling to Hector on Pesach. Good. All right, and then we have anything else on this? We have one more Rashi on this verse. B'chol moshvotechem tochlu matzot. This is going to be a Rashi where the words are easy to understand, but there's a lot of context I'm going to have to fill in.
This comes to teach Shetehei Re'uya Le'echal.
He'achel, to be eaten.
So it's appropriate for eating? That
right, but keep the next phrase.
B'chol mashvotechem, in all your dwellings.
Okay, so far he's saying that what this phrase is telling us is to teach us that it should be, what's the it? What's the it in this phrase? The matzot, because now we're at the end of the verse where it says, B'chol moshvotechem techlu matzot, you should eat matzahs in all of your dwelling places, right? This is coming to teach us, let me go take a step back. What Rashi is not saying out loud, but is saying in his mind is, no one would have thought that only some places where you are, matzah is obligatory, whereas other places it's not. Like, that's a silly idea that based on where you are, that's how the rule applies. No, it can't be that. Rather, it's coming to tell you that this matzah that you eat on Pesach has to be matzah that is re'uya, worthy, appropriate, leheachel, to be eaten, b'chol moshvotechem, in any of your dwelling places. They might say, what does that mean? What's a category of food that can only be eaten one place and not someplace else? The answer is, we have those categories of food, and he's going to give us 2 examples. Prat?
Prat le-ma'asar sheni. Oh, that's the second tithing?
Right.
V'chalot todah.
Okay, so we have 2 categories of foodstuffs that in ancient Israel, particularly when the temple stood, had GPS requirements for where you ate it, right? Let's do them one by one. Ma'aser sheni. Anyone, you started talking, tell us what you know about Ma'aser sheni.
I know there's one tithing, and then you take another tithing for something else. one of them's for the Leviim, and then you take the second one for the Aniim or something like that.
You're very, very close, right? Steve, you want to fill in a little bit?
Right. So what Joel's alluding to is that on different years, your first tithe either goes to the Leviim or to the poor. But when you tithe to the Leviim then have to tithe from that to the Kohen. That's the second tithe.
Correct. I had the verses open so I could pull them up, but now I can't find them. Where are you? Oh, no. Hold on. My kids make fun of me for having too many tabs open on my computer, which I'm definitely doing now. But I had all these. Oh, here it is. Okay. I'm going to pull up the verse and share it on the screen. So those of you on that side of the table may want to turn around. So in the ancient agricultural system, the farmers owed to the temple a portion of their income, taxes and tithes, okay? And they were essentially There were essentially 3 levels of it, although you could dig down deep into it. Let's start with, let's say I have 1,000 apples. I don't know if apples grew in the land of Israel, but I had 1,000 pieces of produce. The first 2% is called
Extra virgin.
extra. The first 2% is called truma, and it goes to the Kohanim, right? I think mathematically, even though it just somehow turns out the fact that in many Jewish communities there are more Kohanim than Levi'im, Kohanim were a subset of Levi'im, so in ancient Israel there were many more Levi'im than Kohanim, right? Because Kohanim were just descendants of Aaron, Levi'im were descendants of the tribe of Levi. The first 2% would go to Kohanim. Kohanim had no income. They worked, they served, they were born into this service, and so therefore they subsisted on the gifts of the farmers, okay? Yeah. Where's Stevie or Seth? Can you minimize on that screen the pictures on the right? So now you have what's 2% of 1,000? 20, right? So now you have 980 left, right? The next is maaser. You hear in the word maaser, eser, a tenth, and that's a tenth of what remains, not the tenth of the original. So that's 98, essentially. You owe to the Levi'im because there are more Levi'im than the Kohanim. They too were born into the service. They rely on these gifts to subsist. And then a tenth of what's left after that, whatever 980 minus 98 is, I don't know, 882. A tenth of that is Ma'aser Sheni, right? And in a 7-year Shemitah cycle, the Ma'aser Sheni was done the following way. In years 1, 2, and 4, 5, it was, which one was Ma'aser Ani? Which was Ma'aser Sheni? I actually have not looked at this in a long time. It's 1, 2, 4, 5 is one thing, and years 3 and 6 are the other. I just forgot which is which. One of them is Ma'aser Ani, extra tithe, which is your second tithe that goes to the poor, in addition to your obligations for Peah and Leket and the things you left in the field. And in the other, I think it's years 3 and 6. I don't remember which one's which. It's Ma'aser Sheni, and what Ma'aser Sheni was, essentially to infuse the economy of Jerusalem with your cash, and also as a way of drawing the ancient Israelite to the center of the cultic observance, right? And the Torah makes it very explicit. We're going to look at the verse in a second. Let me tell you what it says, and then I will read it inside. That second tithe, you're supposed to bring that produce to Jerusalem and consume it there, only consume it there. And you may ask, well, how do I bring all these bushels of oranges from the Golan to Jerusalem? Or you can redeem your produce in your place for coins. You bring those coins to Jerusalem, and you spend those coins on food in Jerusalem, and you eat them. My parents had a rule growing up that whenever we got Israel bonds, when they matured, the only thing we could do with Israel bonds when matured is either reinvest them or spend them in Israel. Right? It was. I don't think they were quoting the book of Devarim, but they were inspired by it. Like this. This is not just an investment. This is an investment that is tied to Zionism and to having that cash be fungible there. This is not for you to go to a movie in Connecticut. Okay, so this is the original verse from Parshat Kitavo. So verse 22, Aser ta'aser et kol tfuat zarecha, you should doubly tithe all the produce of your seeds, of your seed sowing, hayotze hasadeh shana shana, which comes out of the field each year, v'achalta, and you shall eat it, lifnei Adonai Elohecha, in the presence of Adonai your God, b'makom asher yivchar, in the place that God chose. So the way the Torah describes this is not economics, this is holiness, right? God is beckoning you to that place, so go there. L'shakein shemo sham, in order to make God's name dwell there. Ma'asar degancha, the 10th of your grains, tiroshcha, your grapes, v'yitzarecha, and your oil, uv'chorot bekarcha, and the firstborns of your cattle, v'tzonecha, and your sheep, leman tilmad, in order that you will learn, liyira et Adonai Elohecha kol haimim, in order that you will learn to have awe for God all your days, right? So it was a built-in system to ensure that as the Israelites spread out, that there was some return to Jerusalem, and it was done on an annual cycle. Okay, so it's a good system, right? And Rashi's saying, if you have kosher lePesach matzah that is already been separated as ma'aser sheni, you can't eat that matzah and fulfill your obligation to Pesach on it, because that is not food that can be eaten b'chol moshvotechem, in all of your dwelling places. It can only be eaten in Jerusalem. So that is exempted from this, right? I know, it's a long route, okay? And it could happen, right? Like, because let's say you were doing your tithe around Pesach, and some of the grain got separated out, and it was formally dedicated as Maser Sheni, and then someone baked matzah with it, kosher, in a kosher way, and it's discovered you cannot bring that to Seder. That's already been determined that it has to be eaten in Jerusalem. Okay. The second category is chalot todah. Okay. So now the next phrase. Well, let's look at the verse. So, yeah, Carl.
Quickly, is that the only source for there being two separate tithes adding up to almost 20%? That repetition there you just showed us of you tithe, you should
Of aser
tithe?
taser.
Or is there somewhere else?
There are several places in Torah. Sometimes it's called tarimu maser min ha-maaser. Lift up the tithe of the tithe. It's not just the doubling of the verb there. There are places where it's a little more explicit. Now, the rabbinic expanse of the material is vast, but it's not just that aser to aser. Yeah. Okay. There's another. Yes, Marshall, please.
I noticed that the translation is Everett Fox's translation, and
previous
I
verse?
don't know what is meant by shining oil.
Yitzhar. Yeah, so Yitzhar is a noun that seems to be used in context for oil pressed from olives and other things. And Everett Fox is so careful about language, and he's trying to figure out what's the root of Yitzhar. So the root of Yitzhar is Tzadi Hey Resh, right? What's the most common? Soharayim. Soharayim means noon because it's the blazing time of the sun. The first time that root is used in the Torah, anyone know? Good. The window or blazing light in the Aron is at Sohar. So that's his way of saying, I know that it refers to oil, but I'm going to translate it in such a way that you know that I know what the root might mean. Yeah. Because we don't really know why. I mean, I guess it makes sense. Like golden oil has a certain sheen to it, right? Even the word sheen is built from shine. Yeah. Yeah, it's the second time Evu is being mentioned in this class. Extra virgin. Okay, so look at the screen. This is Vayikra chapter 7, Parshat Tzav, dealing with the many, many different types of korbanot. And we have a certain korban called a todah, which coincidentally was also mentioned in last night's halacha class in between Mincha and Mariv, because one of the paragraphs of Psukei Zimra, Mizmor LeTodah, was thought to be not just a psalm about gratitude, but a psalm that was recited over this sacrifice. And this sacrifice includes both matzah and chalot. And since it included things that were chametz, it was not ever offered Erev Pesach, which is why you don't say that psalm Erev Pesach, okay, or on Pesach. But in context, the verse says, Im al ha-todah. If the animal that you're bringing is for what we call a todah, a thanks offering, yakrivenu, if that's what you're offering, v'hikriv al zevach ha-todah, you bring it near with the meat offering of that sacrifice, chalot matzot, so loaves of matzah, bilulot bashemen, dripping in oil, urekikei matzot, and other kind of flat crackers of matzah, mishuchim bashamen, anointed in oil, vesolet murbechet, and kind of like a fine semolina that has been all mixed in, chalot, bilulot bashamen, also with oil. So you've got this sacrifice, right? The chametz and matzah don't only exist in the Torah vis-a-vis Pesach. There were certain sacrifices that required there to be matzah and chalot, right? So And where is this sacrifice offered? Only in Jerusalem, right? And so if you have set aside matzahs for a Todah offering to bring to the temple, and it's been consecrated, and then you're like, wait a second, I got to set the Seder table, I want to use that, you can't, because that, once it's been consecrated, that cracker is not ra'ui, going to Rashi's language, to be eaten b'chol moshvotechem. So all of that is Rashi saying the words at the end of this verse, b'chol moshvotechem, is not just a generic way of saying, yeah, this obligation is on you everywhere. It's that any food that has been designated to not be able to be eaten anywhere cannot be eaten to fulfill your obligation for matzah on Pesach. Rachel, let's get Rachel a mic.
Is there some sort of ritual of consecration that someone would do in the home with those matzot or whatever it is you're planning to bring to Jerusalem?
Yeah, I mean, the answer is, I'm sure yes, and it's so far from my area of expertise, right? Certainly when you brought an animal to the temple, there was a moment at which the Kohen would put his hands on the animal, and that would render it from having been your intention to bring it to it having been consecrated. There's also material about how much your intention has efficacy, right? Is it possible that your intention to consecrate this animal already renders that animal no longer viable for something other than that? I don't know what it actually, I don't know what exactly the formula was, but yes, there was a ritual by which your animal or your grain went from being available to you to use for anything you want to donated, right? Stevie, and then Sue.
I'll also say that there was, right, what we read before was from Parshas Rei, but in Parshas Kitavo, there is a declaration that the farmer makes about bringing the maaser, and according to the Mishnah, at least, that declaration was made at the end of Pesach on the years of the tithe. So, according to the Mishnah, the practice discontinued before the rabbinic period. Anyway, but like, it's not crazy to imagine, Pesach being brought, like that ritual being brought into Pesach.
Excellent, Stevie. And it's another opportunity to remind us that the language that came just before that verse from Parshat Kitavo that tells a story, that's the language of Arami Oved Avi. My father was a wandering Aramean, which is the basic text of the Haggadah. So it's Pesach-oriented, and it's describing the ritual of bringing your bikurim, your first fruits, which is what the Omer is leading us up to. So that material in the book of Deuteronomy, even though it doesn't mention Pesach, is Pesach and Omer adjacent. Sue and then Barry.
Can we just go all of this granulation and kind of, I'm disintegrating into these little. I'm trying to get the bigger why. I'm trying to get the bigger why. Why was all of this detail related to the matzah that if you set aside is no longer almost to him? But what's the overall?
Whose why? Are you asking Rashi's why in the verse, or why does the concept of Maaser Sheni exist? Like, which why are you asking? Because there are a lot of whys hovering.
There's a lot of whys. I'm trying to figure out what the overall overarching goal of this is. It to make sure that that everyone is doing their Maaser Sheni and setting it aside, and not, like, I don't get where it's leading to. I've lost the plot.
So Rashi might say it's not leading anywhere, but embedded in these verses are hints that cover all circumstances. And remember that our tradition is a very thick stew. So if you put a spoon in it and you try to stir it, like, you can't get very far because it's so thick. You have to cut through so many layers of nuance and allusion and reference to make sense of it. So we had to cut through what is Maaser Sheni. We had to cut through what is the Korban of Todah. And once we cut through it and we're past it, Rashi says, those two examples, those happen to be examples of foodstuffs that have a geographic obligation, And that's why I, Rashi, am reading this verse as saying they can't be used to fulfill your obligation for matzah and Pesach, because the Torah did not say b'chol moshvotechem for no reason, according to Rashi. It didn't say b'chol moshvotechem for no reason. It doesn't just mean, yeah, eat it in a lot of places. No, it's got to teach us a rule. This is the rule. That's Rashi's why. Joel and Barry, I know Barry's hand was up, but microphone's there.
You're making it sound like it's a stringency, but it could be read as a leniency to disabuse you of the idea that you have to go around to every place that you might live and eat matzah there. It's not saying you have to eat here and then
Very
you have to go
nice.
there and eat. So we're
Very
saying, no,
nice.
this is what
That's a great read, Joel. That's a great rule. Love that. Love that. Barry, and then I see Larry, Diane's hand up.
Well, we're talking about the separation, the dedication from the. When we do Prish Challah, that's what we're doing. That challah that we're preaching, that we're not going to eat that. That's been dedicated, so we can't touch it.
Correct. We burn it, and had we lived in the temple times, we would have brought it to the Kohanim.
But in effect, we still have a ritual now.
Yeah.
Which is that dedication.
Yes, exactly right. Dedication, and once we've dedicated it according to Jewish law, we do not have access to it. Great. Larry, Diane?
I'm struck by Sue's comment because I
Wait,
have
pause 1 second, Larry. Can someone raise the volume? I think it's coming out of the laptop. I'm not sure.
It sounded like it. Put a mic over there.
No? Yeah, or put a mic up to that, if someone wouldn't mind. All right, go ahead. Go ahead. And now you just turned. All right. Go ahead, Larry.
Testing.
Where's it coming out? The speaker? All right, can someone put a mic to the speaker? I don't know why it's so low, or turn the volume up in the speaker. All right, again. Oh. Okay, try again, Larry.
You hear me now?
Try.
Do you hear me now?
Yeah, shout. Do it like Garrett Morris.
Okay. I'm struck by Sue's comment, and I don't know if this is the time. I want to make just a brief comment about the beginning of this chapter and where we are right now.
Okay.
So the beginning of the chapter, God is giving Moses the instructions, I think it's Moses and Aaron, the instructions for how to observe the holiday. And as I think you mentioned and other people have mentioned, this is not in any logical order, I don't think, of how you would instruct people. In fact, one of the names of Pesach is Chag HaMatzot, but the word matzot is only used 2 times in these first 20 verses. One in verse 15, which you've talked about before, and then it's the last word of this section of the chapter. And if I look back only in the last 3 verses, I would say tells me the when we're to observe it, and I will gratuitously comment, it's very clear it's only for 7 days, you guys. And then in verse 19, it tells me what happens if you eat food that's leavened, the prohibition that you can't eat food that's leavened. It's only in this last verse, along with 15, I admit, that it's actually telling me I have to eat matzah. And I think the discussion notwithstanding, which is very interesting, and I admire Rashi for what he's doing, the simplicity of this last verse is striking to me. You have to eat, it says, you can't eat anything leavened, so that's the you can't. The end says you have to eat matzah, that's what you have to do, and in all of your settlements, I'm not saying I'm right, but one way, simple way of interpreting it is, no matter where you are, this is not simply a mitzvah that is going to be done in the land of Israel that you are on your way toward going. This is something you have to do everywhere.
Yeah. Did everyone hear most of that? Yeah. Okay, good. We'll have to fix the audio, but I like the reduction down to the simplicity of this holiday is not just about avoiding chametz; it's about eating matzah wherever you are, and not just in certain locations. Yeah. What's that?
The rabbis will reverse that.
Yes. Carl?
Yeah, so I want to jump on that comment as well, and in fact, go back to Sue's, what's the big message here? And I say that by the principle of explication of equal importance of phrases, we have a first phrase, you shall not eat leavening. Boy, that's important. We all absolutely follow that. We have a second phrase in the same sentence, you shall eat matzahs. That should be equally important and equally binding. How did the rabbis avoid that clear implication?
And you're saying, how do the rabbis spotlight the not eating the chametz and downgrade the eating of the matzah? Yeah. I mean, it's a really good question. You could spend a long time kind of armchair psychologizing the rabbis and their fear of invasion of outside substances or concepts, and how that maybe dominated some of their legal work more than their desire for including the thing we're supposed to include. It's just a guess. I don't know, but you're right. There is a mania in the development of Jewish law on expanding the thou shalt nots. There just is, right? So that's a really interesting comment that in the Torah itself, those seem to be of equal weight. Alan?
There was a real downsizing in terms of when you're supposed to eat matzah, because so many times it says you shall eat matzot for 7 days. And then there was another place that says you shall eat matzot for 6 days. And we had the class here that dealt with this issue, and I can't remember, but one of the 13 hermeneutic principles that no one really understands, but it was done to determine as well.
Ishmael does.
Well, yes. That because of this arrangement, what it really means, and since there's a dispute whether 7 days or 6 days, it means you only have to eat matzah on 1 day.
Yeah.
So, and that's part of the rabbinic shrinking of what's supposed to take place. Yeah. And it had always been troubling for me to see, just because so many times it says you shall eat matzot for 7 days, and yet the rabbi said you're only required to eat it for 1 day or 2 days.
The expanding of what we can't do, and some level of limiting of what we must do. It's really interesting. Someone's got to write an article on that, because that's really an interesting meta concept. So thank you, Carl. Thank you, Alan, for that. That was great. Okay. I think we have time to begin verse 21, which was pointed out by someone, is not only the next Aliyah, we're starting Chamishi of Parshat Bo, but it's also a place where there is a Parsha break. So if you were in the Torah, you would there'd be a break in the text. It's not a new chapter, because the Christian division into chapters had different logic to them as to where the divisions are. This is all still part of chapter 12. New Aliyah.
Rabbi?
Yeah.
With all due respect to you and the members of the class, you may want to leave now if you have to be there for 10 o'clock. And this is a break point. It would be a natural place to stop.
Okay, but I'm enjoying this so much.
We are too, Rabbi, but you don't want to be late for that.
Hillside. Hillside.
Let's just read it. So
All right. Matt, why don't you start reading the next verse while I see what Way says. Wait, you need a microphone.
Oh, sorry. V'yikra Moshe l'chol ziknei Yisrael v'yomer alehem mishchu ukchu lechem tzon l'mishpechotechem v'shachtu ha-pasach.
Okay, and as you're translating, kind of predict Rashi a little bit with the sensitivity to potential redundancy.
Thanks a lot. All right. So Moses called all the elders of Israel. Yeah. All right, and said to them,
the Vayikra it takes the Lamed with it, right? He called two.
Right. And said to them, Mishchu, to continue? What does that mean?
What do you sometimes see on a door? You see dechof or you see right? What does it mean?
Push.
That's
pull,
dechof.
Pull.
Pull. Okay.
Pull and bring unto you the herds or the cattle.
I would think here tzon just means a sheep.
A sheep. Okay,
Yeah.
a sheep. To your families or to each of your families. V'shachtu hapasach, and you slaughter the Paschal offering.
Yeah. So now we're back in narrative as opposed to prepping for it. Now it's happening, right? So Moses basically listened to God and said, okay, got it. Now I'm going to try to do it, right? And so Moses said, here, we're starting the preparations for Exodus. He called the elders, and he said to them, 2 verbs, mishchu ukachu, pull and take, or pull and bring, because kach can mean both, right? And as will not surprise anyone, Rashi will try to give an explanation as to why there were 2 verbs instead of 1. Right? 1 was sufficient. Pull and take for yourselves a sheep for your families, and slaughter it kind of as the Paschal offering. Right? And you know what's coming next. The next is the blood and the mezuzah and everything like that, and you know how the story ends. So when we pick up next time, we'll start with Rashi's intent for understanding Mishchu and Kachu. And sorry the first class is truncated, and thank you for excusing me for this funeral. Have a good day, everyone. Have a good week. See you all soon.
Welcome back.
Thank you.
You've been listening to another in our series of podcasts from Temple Beth Am, a dynamic center for conservative Judaism in Los Angeles. If you enjoy these podcasts, we invite you to write a review on the Apple Podcast website or wherever you get your podcasts. For more information on Temple Beth Am, Los Angeles, please visit www.tbala.org.